Welcome back to Technically Not a Technician. In today's video, we bring you family, and we're diving into the high-octane world of Fast and Furious Arcade, right from the comfort of your own home. Ever wondered how to bring the adrenaline-pumping action of this arcade classic to your PC? Well, you're in luck. I'll walk you through the entire process, from installing your ROM files and setting up TeknoParrot to configuring your standard gamepad for that authentic arcade feel. Prepare yourself and join me as we transform your gaming setup into an unstoppable experience. However, before we do so, I must deliver my customary legally required verbiage.
This video is for educational purposes only, and is only intended to show you what I've done and what my results are. If you choose to modify your systems using this or any other information I've provided from any video or content I've created, you do so at your own risk. This channel, or any person connected to this video, will not be held liable for any choices you make with your hardware or software. Modify at your own risk.
Hey, speedsters! Before we turbocharge your gaming setup with TeknoParrot, a quick pit stop. We do not support software piracy. We assume all your arcade ROMs are legally acquired. No exceptions. Think of it like this. Our channel is a piracy-free zone. We don't share game ROMs. Ever. Period. And always remember, the FBI might be watching. Speaking of the FBI, hello there, Agent Johnson. Just remember, my friends, stay fast, stay legal, and let's get racing. It's also important to note that this video assumes that you've not only legally obtained the needed ROM files, but you've also installed TeknoParrot and all of the needed dependencies. If you've not, do not worry, as I happen to have a video discussing both the topics of installing the needed dependencies and installing and basic setup of the TeknoParrot software. You can find a link to that video above and below in the description. With all of that out of the way, let's shift over to my computer, and let's get started. Once we have our arcade ROM, we'll need a place to store it. For this build, I'll be storing my ROM files in a folder I added in my TeknoParrot directory called ROMs, and I'll basically be expanding that folder to the left side of my screen. After filling the left side of the screen with our ROM folder, we'll wish to locate our ROM file. Generally, when found, these files are compressed with a utility of some kind. Most of the time, I've seen these files compressed with a standard zip utility. However, I've also seen a TeknoParrot ROM archive that was in CHUD format. Regardless, we'll need to decompress the files, and for this video, I'll be using 7-zip, as it works with most formats. Sadly, as of making this video, it's not compatible with CHUD formatted files, and although I am digressing, we will need to open our compressed ROM and expand it to the right side of the screen. With everything in place, we'll drag and drop our Fast and Furious Arcade ROM folder into our TeknoParrot ROM folder. You can store your ROM folder in almost any place you like. I do it this way because it's simple to navigate. Regardless, this process doesn't take long, and your time will be different as you're on different hardware. With our ROM files transferred to our ROMs folder, we can say good riddance to our compressed files, and we'll be deleting them. I would also invite you to take note that we are using an up-to-date version of TeknoParrot. It's important that you do so too, as it is my understanding that, as of making this video, past versions of TeknoParrot will not run this game well, if at all. After launching and updating your TeknoParrot build, we'll wish to click on the hamburger menu at the top left side of the TeknoParrot program. This action will open a menu with a number of options, and we'll wish to select the second one from the top that's titled, Add Game. After we've selected the Add Game option, another new menu will open up, giving us a list of all the arcades that are compatible with TeknoParrot. Once in this menu, scroll to the bottom area, where you'll find the arcade cab titled, Fast and Furious, and select that option. After the Fast and Furious arcade is selected, click on the Add Game icon from the menu on the center right side of the TeknoParrot software. After we click Add Game, we'll be kicked back into our library. This is normal. Do not panic. Simply verify that you have Fast and Furious selected from the library, and then click on the Game Settings option from the right side menu. We're now moved into the Game Settings menu, and here we'll first need to point TeknoParrot to the Fast and Furious executable. For most of the arcades I've demoed, TeknoParrot has given us a helpful hint in the form of the executable's name at the top of the menu. Be sure to note this helpful hint. If we click on the line directly below the executable's name, we'll be given the opportunity to navigate to and select the Fast and Furious executable. Basically, all we've got to do is open the Fast and Furious ROM folder and select the file with the corresponding name. After pointing to the arcade executable, we'll be kicked back into the previous menu, and we can see that we have an HD patch we can select. However, the attached note from TeknoParrot informs us that this patch does cause scaling issues with the menus. For now, we'll skip this patch. However, we'll revisit this patch later in this video. We do, however, want to place a checkmark inside the box that corresponds to the frame limiter option. From what I've seen when demoing new arcades with TeknoParrot, if we do not select this option, our arcade will run very fast and will be unplayable. From my understanding, this option simply sets the frames per second to 30, slowing the game to real time, and giving us a playable experience. After clicking Save from the bottom two options, we'll once again get kicked back into the main Fast and Furious menu, and we'll now need to click on the controller setup icon from the right side menu. After we select controller setup, we'll be pushed to the controller setup menu, and here we'll need to bind our favorite controller to this arcade cab. We'll go from the top, and we'll work our way down, starting with the Start Nitro option, and we'll bind that to the Start button on our controller. Next, we need to bind our gears for shifting. I'm electing to only bind the shift up and down options, as this works with how I wish to control my gameplay, and I'll be binding those to my right and left shoulder buttons on my controller. Remember that with binding your controller, you should use binds that work with your gameplay, and there is no right or wrong way to do it, as long as your binds work for you. Let's now bind the radio and our 3 views actions, and let's bind those actions to the A, B, X, and Y buttons on the controller. The next 4 actions that need to be bound are basically service actions used by the arcade proprietor to make changes in the arcade's physical settings. These are the test, service, volume up, and volume down actions. I bind these controls to my keyboard, and I use the 0, 9, plus, and minus keys on my keyboard. The last bindings we need to make are for steering, gas, and not that I use it much but also the brake too. I'll be binding my steering wheel to the X-axis on my left stick, the gas will be bound to my right trigger, and the brake will be bound to the left trigger. After you've finished your bindings, click on the Save option at the bottom. Let's launch the arcade, and let's see if we have any issues or if we get a satisfactory boot. When I first booted this cab, I did get this error regarding the network and stating that the cab needs a reboot. So we'll exit the cab and make some adjustments to see if we can correct this issue. To be honest, I've anticipated this network issue, and I've got an idea of what needs to happen to fix it, as this isn't the first networking hiccup we've seen. Most are due to Windows security settings. To make these needed changes, we'll need to enter the Game Settings menu once again. In the Game Settings menu, simply click on the Windowed option, then click on the Save icon at the bottom, and when back into the previous menu, click on the Launch Game selection from the right side menu. When we do this, the arcade will launch in a small window, letting us see that the Windows operating system is in fact giving us the option to let this arcade software use the computer's network access. If you wish to try online play, click Yes. If not, feel free to click on the Cancel. Now for total transparency, I'm not really sure if this cab just needs to be restarted or if it is a Windows security issue. All I really know is this is what I did, and it worked for me. It now looks as if the cab works, but I don't want to demo in a small window, so let's exit the cab again and make some small changes. After the cab exits, we'll need to re-enter the Game Settings option and uncheck the windowed box. Once done, I'll simply save these settings, and then we'll launch the arcade once again. Funny thing about this arcade, when launched in this configuration, it was in widescreen. However, when checking the recording, it was captured in standard screen with a 4:3 aspect ratio. So I took the opportunity to make a bezel for it. You will not find this bezel in TeknoParrot or in the arcade. It's sadly just video editing. Regardless of how the bezel was added, for a low-resolution image that was made to fit an HD screen, I think the image looks clean. I'd love it if the image was a little more crisp, but I am able to make out the details of this image, and this should give us a playable cab. I can also say that the low-res cab's menus are all working, and I'm able to navigate the controls without an issue. Really not terrible at all considering this cab isn't listed as playable on TeknoParrot. As far as the gameplay, it feels really nice. I've stated in the past that I kind of stink at gaming. Please keep that in mind when you watch this. I don't feel I do a fantastic job of demonstrating how effective the controls truly are. I'll admit that if I took the time to enter the service menu, I'd probably get a little more out of them, but I'd be lying if I said the default settings didn't feel comfortable right out of the gate. With this configuration, you get some really great gameplay out of this cab, but what about that HD patch? Are the issues worth that crisp image? Let's find out. Basically, we're going to exit the game and enter the game settings menu once again. Once here, we'll want to place a check mark in the box that corresponds to the HD patch. When done, simply save your settings, and you'll get kicked back into the previous menu, and from here we'll need to click on the Launch Game option. To help save a little time, I'm going to skip the TeknoParrot boot sequence and go into the cab boot. As you can see, the HD patch does work. Even the cab's boot intro looks good, but sadly, the issues that TeknoParrot warned us about are active and do affect our HUD and the menu's ability to accurately indicate your selection from each menu. I'm not saying you can't figure it out. However, with this patch, be prepared to make mistakes in menu selections. Really kind of a small price to pay. The HD patch makes this look much more crisp, in my opinion. True, the menu issue stinks and will make navigating menus and making your selection a pain in the bottom, but the image makes up for this small deficiency. Gameplay is also very nice. I demoed all of the easy maps and 2 of the medium tier maps. Everything I tested, demoed well, and each of the racetracks I felt were well thought out. All the racetracks I demoed come with secret paths that come up fast, but if you can find them, you'll have a competitive edge above the other races. I also enjoyed the background details. It seems that the game designers put a lot into the backdrops of this cab, and it really shows in the details. Another thing I enjoyed are the upgrades you get to add to your car after a successful race. This detail personalizes your vehicle and gives you more power for your next race. If you've made it this far in my video, then I'd like to thank you. It really means a lot, and I really hope you found this video helpful, enjoyable, and informative. If you did, or even if you didn't, I'd like to ask that you hit that like button, hit the notification icon, please leave me a comment, share this video with a friend, and if you've not done so yet, please consider subscribing to the channel. Each of these are just a few small clicks of the mouse for you. However, to this small channel, those small clicks help us beat the YouTube algorithm, they help us share this information, they help this community grow, and they mean the world to this channel. Thank you.